4-line stanzas, and you can see the 4th line rhymes all the way through, and then the other line within the stanzas.
Oh my gosh. It takes a lot of skill to rhyme cancer with pants are. I was gonna say that's really good. Well, your talk of colonoscopies inspired me to read a poem. I can't. There it is. Okay. And this is actually dedicated to JD. It's called "Dim Lands of Peace," and there's an epigraph by Ezra Pound who said, "Never use such a phrase as dim lands of peace. It dulls the image." Yeah. So, concrete thing of huge abstraction, right? So, right. Dim lands of peace. Carrying gingerly the colostomy bag of my fears, I went down to the river of courage, drank like a man of robust thirst, a tall whirling dust dervish of infinite angst. See that something comes down. And then I sojourned to see you, lovely, my love. This is for him. Your beauty as strong as my love of rusted and dented ephemera, holed up in your castle of antipathy and moss. Rigidly I stood outside in the cold wind of your ignoring me, gazing up at your spindly and tall towers of profound indifference, and behind me, running on forever under the glistening sunset, my dim lands of peace. There's really no easy transition from that to these poems. These are some new poems. So I'm just going to read a couple of them. And they kind of need some introduction. So I had a bunch of dead poems that they just didn't seem to have any life to them, and I was just like, how do I reinvigorate them? I just couldn't figure out how to do that. So, and I felt, for some reason, I felt this compunction to write about something that is topical, perhaps, dare I say political even, which feels really weird and sort of scary. And so I came up with this kind of, he's sort of a trickster figure, sort of an unusual character. He's sort of like Coyote or Crow, like he can do things that are beyond like what physics or the laws of humanity will allow. He can be reincarnated. He can assume other kinds of shapes and forms, and he also like is almost sort of like stupidly wise. So like those characters, Crow and Coyote. So that's all I can say about it. So this is called Gun Observes the Election. Gun is the trickster figure. Some guy yakking away on TV said it would be a good idea, so Gun wanted to do it. He shined himself up, got loaded, feeling no pain, and went out on the town. He stood across from the voting precinct, an old brick school with cutout hands made into turkeys, all over hallway walls, all rich oranges and ochres. Darkness crept in, street lamps buzzed on, cars rolled by, and the quaintness of it all bored the daylights out of Gun. We, the people, went in and out. Some froze and stared, they gaped. "What are you looking at?" he'd shout. And then he'd answer in his own skull chamber, "Nothing much." Gun is super insecure that way. One man, an old grizzled black guy, shook his head as he shuffled in. A white dude with an enormous gut nodded, gave the thumbs up. And so we are not one, non e pluribus unum, Gun thought. We're not one thing at all. We've got loads of problems, Gun said out loud to nobody in particular, his sneer gleaming in the streetlight. So I say a bad word in here, just warning. I don't want to say trigger warning because that's really bad. There's so many bad puns that I could say. So, Gunn gets mad at the Uber driver. Gunn don't drive. He pays all others to do all that shazz. Gunn really digs the ride he's in now. The Uber guy smells like girl soap and is playing My Way, Sinatra style. They both snap their long fingers to old blue eyes. Gunn opens his window. The fresh wind bristles and blows Gunn's hair back. Hey, it's too cold for that, the Uber driver says. So what, Gunn says. I like a fresh breeze. I have to close these windows, Uber guy says. You're ruining my buzz, Gunn says. I'll be lashing out at you if you close this window. The world won't accept Gunn on his own terms. What he says doesn't ever work. Window glides up, child lock goes on. Gunn tries a new tack. He tries wrath. You stupid motherfucker, he says. Open my goddamn window back up. I said that in a church. I feel terrible now, so I didn't realize that. This direct address is not well received. The window stays up. At a red light, Gunn jumps out of the car, clambers onto the roof, and pulls an atom bomb out of his pocket. Painted on the smooth, round fuselage, it reads, "Media is the enemy of the American people." There's also a pinup girl in a bikini, replete with shapely curves all over herself. Gunn dangles the atom bomb in front of the windshield. Uber guy floors it, then hammers the brakes. Gunn and his atom bomb launch off, go skidding into the intersection. A bus runs over Gunn and his bomb. The bomb cracks open like an egg. Some white smoke genies out, but it's a dud. A passerby, a woman in a mink coat walking a tiny sausage dog, positively sings out Julie Andrews style, "Invoke the better angels of your nature." Thanks. Oh, am I in the wrong spot? Sorry. All right. Let's see. Let's read two more from these new poems. So "Invoke the better angels of your nature" is from is a quote from Abraham Lincoln, right? Yeah. This is sort of a meta poem. The poet addresses Gunn. I want to read all your writing, especially your suicide note. I want to throw you into the sun, but you're too heavy. Gravity loves you. Still you captivate me. I'm always wanting to touch you, grip and grip. You sleep down by the cool breath of the river. I sleep in a soft bed. Who's got it better? I pass judgment on you, but this stance is rote. All the kids want you because you are so cool. I write and write all these words, useless black stitches. Do you even care? Does anybody? I gaze into your black open eye. All believers worth their salt must have you. All those brave flags, stars and stripes waving in a blue sky. Okay. Gunn goes to see a shrink. They sit inert. They don't say anything. Gunn, it is apparent, is well defended. I just had a lot of bad puns. It was fun. The shrink says, "Well, let's start by you telling me about your day." Gunn says, "I got up, used the John, went for a walk, went off a couple of times, and ended up back in the closet in the old tin box, high on the shelf, the old dirty magazines, and a paper dry baggie of dope like I'm some kind of contraband." And how did you feel about that? People died along the way, probably, but so what? It's not my fault. What makes you say that? Say what? The last part. Because I didn't do it. Haven't you heard? Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Wait, not over. Long pause. Shrink scribbles some notes. He makes a cage of his fingers tip to tip. He's thinking real deep. The moment hangs there in the empty space between them, like something might actually happen. The shrink sucks in a deep breath. "Well, I'm sorry to say, our time is up," he says. "Just what I was thinking," Gunn says.
Mike, how many are in that series? How many Gunn
35. It's a full manuscript at this point. Yeah. Well, what I said, I had a lot of dead poems that were all like, you know, I.
Yeah.
And then when I placed I with gun, it sort of opened them up like this new sort of crazy character. And trying to write it in a way that doesn't, you know, I don't want to be judgmental. You know, I just want to explore what this is all about. You know,
So I want to do, while Mike's been writing poems about his trickster, I've been writing a lot of poems in one specific form, which is the triolet, which, as you all know, is an 8-line poem, 8 lines long, and it's characterized by a rhyme scheme that's fairly formal, and some repeating lines throughout the poem. So, 8-line poem, and if you get to repeat lines, the poem writes itself pretty quickly, because once you've written a couple of the lines, you've written most of the poem already. Yeah. I like to call it poetry helper. So this first one is called, Her Name Was Simile. Her parents named her Simile because they were like that. But she was nothing like her family, though her parents named her Simile. She was a simple prayer, a homily. She was daisies where the fence is. Her parents named her Simile because they were like that, pretentious. Thank you. Spoke of my father earlier. This is a poem about my father, of whom I was very fond. Still am. This poem is titled "Dad Was a Real Bastard." And it has an epigraph also, for Aunt Sylvia, who finally told the story. I mean, he truly was a wonderful man, but he was born before my grandma got married. When he smiled, he looked like he was drawn with a crayon. Honestly, my dad was a wonderful man, with a heart made of denim and a wit made of phlegm, and an origin story that lay 8 decades buried. I mean, he truly was a wonderful man, but he was born before my grandma got married. Dad was a real bastard. Mike wrote a poem, just read a poem about a therapist, so here's a poem that mentions a therapist. My wife's a therapist, coincidentally. There's probably a poem that mentions her in here too, but this is not one of them. This poem is titled Dogs for Cats. Dogs for Cats. We come with paws out, no intention to eat you, though it's anyone's move if the can opener fails. Our therapists told us we needed to meet you representing our paws, no intention to eat you, while the arch of your backs says we're failing to reach you. We'll forgive all the growling and the size of your tails. We come with paws out, no intention to eat you, though it's anyone's move if the can opener fails. Dogs for cats. And just to keep hitting on the same themes that Mike's hitting on, it's a poem about a water park. Grab my water. This is not any kind of special effect. Don't worry. Closing time at the mediocre water park. There's still some time to ride the Weasel, this water slide with 7 elbows. A setting sun and rising breeze will chill you off as we ride the Weasel. Smells of copper tone and diesel and the chlorine splashing up your nose. There's still some time to ride the Weasel, this water slide with 7 elbows. As you can see, so the triolet, the reason why I like it is you get in, you get out really fast. Yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoyed that. So, I want to read you a few more triolets, but I'm going to read a slightly longer poem, and then I'm going to let him read some more, and then I'll read a few more triolets. But I want to break it up because you're just going to get sick of triolets. So I'll just keep going because I've got a huge stack of them.
Oh, God.
This is a poem I wrote for Chris Rancic. It doesn't have an epigraph yet, but it might. The poem is called Verlaine, Whiskey, and the Tanahutu River. We have been drinking Verlaine again, not in fitful sips, eyes darting around the room as I have always done, but in big, manful gulps of poems read aloud to this small wooden room. Beat up couch, scuffed chair, clink of glass bottles, and our wincing grunts of admiration. I think I learned in college that Verlaine led an exciting life. I think I should have learned that some other way. Chris reads aloud from a whiskey bottle. His face is a map of places someone could go if they had any sense. I have very little sense. I have filled my head with too many bad flowers. It is all I can do once a year to drag my ass, my notebooks, and my ukulele over Beartooth Pass to writer's camp. Chris smiles the word Orkney. When I was a kid, I dreamed of a journey to Kathmandu, to fly there by train and walk the crooked streets named after fancy kinds of cheeses, and return with a t-shirt that just said Kathmandu. Today, I am almost 54, well-oiled and not too far from home in a cabin perched on a slope on the side of a river that I have visited 100 times, whose name I can neither spell nor pronounce. Does it rhyme with Kathmandu Zoo? I'll read one more triolet and then kick it back to Mikey. One more triolet. Now, you're probably getting the feeling about these that they end pretty quick, so, you know, don't lose your concentration because it's in and out. We're in and out. This triolet is called What Was Under There?
I'm not saying that.
No, really, I'm still curious. Even after all these years, I'm not just trying to trick you to say the word underwear. It's been a long time, man, and you still have these fears, but really, I'm just curious. After all of these years and the disappearance of Maurice and all those boxes from Sears, it's way past a joke anymore. I just care. No, really, I'm just curious. After all of these years, this is not some lame trick to get you to say underwear. It was called What Was Under There. Mikey, why don't you come on?